Hi, I'm Brad Rexley, former Vice President for Disney's Epcot theme park, and you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Hi there, I'm Lee Cockrell. I'm the former Executive Vice President of Walt Disney World, and Mickey Mouse was my boss. And you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Yes, I accept the Coaster Challenge. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Coaster Challenge podcast is here. It's time to face your fears. Get that theme park therapy and let us go through. Coaster Challenge podcast is here. Your fear can disappear. We know that theme park therapy can dry up all your tears. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Yes, I accept the Coaster Challenge. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? We accept because you know we're not average.
You're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast. A journey where people become fearful to fearless, all from riding roller coasters. So please secure your hats and glasses and keep your hands and arms inside the podcast. It's time to accept the Coaster Challenge with your hosts, Andrew Locke.
Hey everyone, this is Andrew, one of the producers of the Coaster Challenge podcast. Got a very interesting guest today for a couple different reasons, as you'll see. So when people think of coaster manufacturers, various names commonly come to mind. Intamin, one of my personal favorites, of course, RMC, Vekoma, B&M, etc. There's another coaster manufacturer, however, who dominates when it comes to a specific type of coaster that we all enjoy all around the world. That's the mountain coaster. Coaster Challenge podcast is proud to welcome Jacob Watabe, design engineer from Wiegand Sports USA. Welcome, Jacob.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. You're our very first. We've had other manufacturers here on the show. Actually, some of those big names I mentioned. We've had some interviews with some of those folks, but we've never had a actual coaster designer on the show. So this is really exciting.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited as well.
Awesome. So speaking of that, so obviously we know your work, but I understand that you're also a coaster enthusiast, like many of us here on the podcast, and of course our listeners. So, yeah, why don't you tell us about yourself and your experience working within the industry and your love of coasters?
Sure. Yeah. Like you said, I'm an enthusiast, so that's kind of where it all started. When I was in middle school, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I did one of those career tests, and it said if you like roller coasters, you should go into mechanical engineering, because you might be able to design coasters. So, that's really what got me into it. Studied mechanical engineering through an undergrad. And while I was doing that, I spent a summer working at Cedar Point. So that was really my first job working in the industry. I was a ride operator on Corkscrew.
Oh, nice.
That was a ton of fun. Loved that job. That fall, I decided, I was looking for jobs, looking for what I was going to do after college. I decided I wanted to work in the amusement industry. I'm like, this is why I got into it. I should probably, try and find a job in the industry. Bought a ticket out to IAAPA. Went out to IAAPA with a friend, talked to a bunch of different manufacturers, and eventually Wiegand had called me back. And they said they needed another engineer in their office. We're out here in Stevensville, Montana. And I'm like, cool. I would love to design coasters, alpine coasters, roller coasters, whatever it is. I'm sure I'd love that. So I signed on with them, and I've been working for Wiegand since August. So fairly new to Wiegand. Graduated college fairly recently, but I've had some really cool experiences already working for the company. Gotten to help manage a lot of our current installation projects, a couple of which have opened, like Skyland Ranch out in Tennessee. Opened fairly recently. We just opened one down in Texas, in New Braunfels. So it's near New Braunfels, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of by San Antonio. Yep.
Yeah.
There was an Amusement Today article about that actually just recently. The first alpine coaster in Texas. So we're excited about that one. And then we've got a couple projects coming up here in the future. I guess by the time this episode releases, some of them will be open. But I've been able to do some design work and some really cool things with that. So.
Yeah, Yeah, wow. Okay, that's awesome. Well, thanks for that intro. That was a great summary and several things to unpack there. So first of all,
Sure.
just being an engineer myself, I'm an optical engineer, but optical engineers,
Yeah.
we do a lot. Certainly I went through my physics classes, mechanics classes, and we do we kind of relate to especially mechanical, but also electrical too. But where'd you go to school, out of curiosity?
I went to Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Very nice. And you mentioned Cincinnati. So Kings Island was your home park growing up?
Yep. For a very long time. Yeah.
Nice. So when's the last time you kind of spent a fair amount of time there?
The last time I went to Kings Island was while I was working at Cedar Point, which was in 2021.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I've lived in Utah since 2014. And now I live in Montana, of course.
Where in Montana?
So the company's located in Stevensville. It's about 30 minutes south of Missoula. So it's in northwestern Montana.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah. Missoula, river runs through it. Great movie.
Yep.
Beautiful town. I've Montana's one of the few states, along with Wyoming and North Dakota and South Dakota, I've not been to, like that kind of corner of the country, so to speak. But it looks beautiful from what I've seen in like movies and online and stuff. Do you like living there? Has it been kind of nice compared to Ohio, like very different from Ohio and Utah, right?
Yeah, I actually fairly similar to Utah, kind of with the mountains around and a lot to do outdoors. Like I said, I moved out here in August, so it's been cold for most of the time that I've lived here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just barely warming up again. So we're starting to enjoy kind of the outdoors stuff. But even in the summer, the evenings get cold and it's a very temperate state, which I'm fine with. I'm personally more of a cold weather person, having grown up in Ohio, but but it's not for everyone. So.
Gotcha. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, when you were back in Ohio, growing up, and pre-college days, like you said, a couple years ago, maybe when you're still in college, you went to Kings Island. So, were you part of the enthusiast community at Kings Island? Like, do you know like local enthusiasts and would hang out with them there by chance?
I mean, this was mostly in like middle school, early high school.
Okay.
I actually went to Mason High School, which is 5 minutes down the road from Kings Island. Yeah.
Right.
So there were quite a few people that were, to some level, an enthusiast, at school. So I had friends at school that I'd go to Kings Island with and have fun with, but not really too involved with like anything like KA Central or anything like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the reason I was asking is I live in Orlando. I've never lived in Ohio, but I've spent a lot of time in Ohio. And through just friendships I've made of myself, on social media, and then met people in real life, and also connections to the podcast, got quite a few friends that are local Kings Island enthusiasts. In fact, one of our other of the show, Kim Dykes, she lives in Louisville, but she basically considers Kings Island one of her home parks, along with, of course, Kentucky Kingdom. And she's at Kings Island with these same group of people all the time. So, like when I go to Kings Island, it's amazing because I think it's a great enthusiast park, one of my favorite parks in Cedar First Chain. And there's so many friends that I get to hang out with while I'm there. And so I was just curious if you maybe knew the same people, but no worries. All good stuff. Now I think if I remember, I might be getting my wires crossed, but you were talking about the mountain coaster that just went in Texas, and that's the first one in Texas, right?
Yep.
Are you involved? Do you get involved at all with like the marketing side, or do you know about when you guys worked with like production companies to like create promo materials and commercials and things like that? Or is that something you get involved with at Wiegand?
As far as like marketing for the individual rides themselves, not too much. Occasionally, some customers will ask us to do something or another for them, but for the most part, that's just all on the customer to do. We obviously market the ride itself. We're trying to sell more rides across the country. So.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It'd be more on the operator and the customer end. Yeah, the reason why I bring up is because a couple of good friends of mine, they run their own production company, and they were very successful. They work with all the major manufacturers, and I know that the Skyline Ranch one, they did some work with. I think it was late last year. And then I think maybe in the Texas one, but yeah, neither here nor there. Actually, I need to have them on the podcast. They're just so busy because they travel so much, given the work they do. It's hard to nail them down. But anyways, but yeah, I'm looking forward to. I'll probably hit the New Braunfels one next year. I'm planning on doing a road trip out west to Texas and beyond. But as I was telling you before we started, I'm looking forward to riding the Skyland Ranch one in a couple weeks here, because I'm going out there for a Coaster Crew event to Dollywood. So really looking forward to that. Yeah, and I've ridden all of your coasters in that region. My favorite is the Smoky Mountain Alpine coaster.
Yep, it's a popular one.
Yeah, I love it is because that's the one where you go through all the lift hills. It's like a long lift hill section, and it's just a really long course afterwards.
Yeah, that's Rocky Top, right? Or no, Smoky Mountain's got Smoky Mountain's got the multiple kind of like sections of the uptrack. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and then Rocky Top I did love as well. It's like my second favorite. Of course, it's really close to Dollywood, which is awesome. They get a lot of business, I'm sure, from Dollywood. Great location. But that one is where you have lift hill, nice section, lift hill, nice section, lift hill. So it's spread out. It's kind of broken up, but it's also a really long mountain coaster. They're both really long. And and I rode. I think I rode Rocky Top at night. I've only ridden it once, but I rode Smoky Mountain during the day. I need to ride Smoky Mountain at night because I love your coasters at night. They're so much fun. And you guys do the lighting packages, by the way?
No, we do not. Those are all done separately. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Well, so do you contract that out, or is it the customer that does that?
The customer typically. We do lighting packages for our dry slide line, but not for the coasters as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
Not for the coasters. Okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, very good. Well, thanks for, again, going through that overview. As I was telling you before we started recording here, we kind of have two halves to the interview with these types of interviews. First half is really about you personally, especially since you're a coaster enthusiast. And the second half is going to talk a little bit about Wiegand, some more in a little more formally than what we've done so far, and just kind of share with our listeners, because a lot of our listeners, like myself, have ridden mountain coasters, but people don't know a lot about them and the history of the company and all that. So it'd be interesting to kind of get into some of that, but we'll get there. Yeah. So before that, though, just a quick kind of walk down memory lane. So what was the first coaster that you remember riding?
So the first coaster that I rode, probably, I've grown up going to theme parks, is probably the Matterhorn at Disneyland. But I don't remember that distinctly as like, oh, this is a roller coaster, I'm riding it. The first one that I say was like, oh, this is, really felt like a roller coaster would have been, at the time it was called Beastie at Kings Island. But it's currently Woodstock Express or something like that. Yeah.
Woodstock Express. Yeah. Beastie is a very common first coaster answer to this question. What's funny, though, is you mentioned Matterhorn. The last interview that I did, the answer was Matterhorn.
Okay.
Actually, a really good friend of mine that we interviewed, and he's from Phoenix. So they used to go out to Disneyland all the time. But yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Gotcha. So how many credits do you have? Like, do you keep track of your credits, or?
I do keep track. Yeah. It's somewhere around, I'm trying to sort out my count right now with like the mountain coasters and what to count, what not to count, that kind of thing. It's somewhere around 190. So creeping up on 200, but not quite there yet. Yep.
Awesome. Do you have plans for what the 200th is going to be? Have you mapped that out, or like a big milestone, or?
Not yet. I've got a couple coaster trips in mind for this year, but haven't decided on which one's going to be next, because the next one probably will hit 200 for me. So, yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, I've been having fun with milestones, making them really special. My last milestone was my 500th, which was Terran.
Oh wow, that's impressive.
And I'm a big intimate guy, and it actually became my number one in not that visit, but my next visit, when I finally got a night ride on it last December. It was so amazing, just amazing. But anyways, well, I hope your 200th is a great one, and hope you get it soon. Sounds like you'll be getting it here in a few months. So awesome.
Yeah, hope so. Yep.
Yeah. So of your almost 200 coasters, which would you say is the one that really intimidated you the most, that gave you the most anxiety and fear before you rode it?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be going back to Kings Island for this one, right? That's what I grew up with. just walking down the Midway. I was happy to ride like Racer and Beast and all these rides, but Vortex with all the loops right there was one that really intimidated me for a very long time. Just being a ride that goes upside down, and also it was just a really tall ride. I guess it's gone now, unfortunately, but
yeah, a lot of those Arrow mega loopers are going the way of the dodo, unfortunately. But with Arrow out of business, it's hard to keep them maintained. Even though SNF still tries to sell parts for them, it's not the same. But so is it the height or the inversions that were really intimidating you?
I think it was more the inversions, because like I said, I'd ridden Beast. I'd been fine with Beast for a while, and Vortex just sitting right there was something that I didn't really want to touch just because of the inversions for a very long time. So yeah,
makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you and I have some parallels here. The coaster that scared me the most, where I basically became a Thuzy more or less afterwards, and really cracked my fear, was another Arrow Mega Looper, but a little further to the east, was Great American Scream Machine at Great Adventure.
Oh yeah.
And my friends kind of dragged me, but coaxed me onto it, and I'm so glad that they did. Friends often can help us in life. Kind of, they weren't teasing me. They were just like, Andrew, you'll love it. Come on. They were being very positively encouraging me. I'm glad they did. But okay. So Vortex. So I've ridden Vortex. My first couple visits to Kings Island, it was still open. I totally get it. There's, there was I think, what was it, 5 inversions or something like that, I think?
Yeah, 6, I believe. Yeah.
6? Okay. I don't remember it well. Yeah. So talk to me about, when you got off the coaster, how did you feel after you rode it?
I mean, it was a really intense ride. I remember the first time my friends got me on it, we hit the brake run, and I'm like, holy cow, that was way too intense for me. But at the same time, it kind of had the thought in my head of like, the going upside down part wasn't necessarily as scary as I thought it would be. But yeah, I do remember, that ride pulled a lot of G's. So it'll leave you out of breath by the end of it for sure.
Oh yeah. And like you, once I went through my first loop, my first inversion was a loop, because you went right into it on Scream Machine. I think Vortex too. I was like, oh, this isn't scary. I like this. Oh, there's more of this on this ride. This is awesome. Like, it was all happening in real time. So, but I mean, were you feeling? I realized it was intense, but you enjoyed the loop. So the things you were scared of, you enjoyed. So
exactly.
Okay, got it. So, how did riding Vortex, facing your fears, and actually riding it, not chickening out or whatnot? So by riding it and actually enjoying what you feared, how did that change? How did that impact your life?
Well, I think it opened a lot of doors for me as an enthusiast. I think I kind of came in more from the video game side. I'd play Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 with my friends, and then, go to Kings Island. I still didn't want to ride the upside down rides, but once I finally did, it's like, oh, that wasn't too bad. And now I'm pushing past this. I'm getting to the point where I can ride any ride that I'm imagining up in my head, or on Roller Coaster Tycoon, or those kinds of things.
Right. So fear turned into excitement and anticipation for you.
Yeah.
Got it. That's really cool. That's great. Now, I think there's obviously a obvious answer to this question, low-hanging fruit, because now you work in the industry. But, and again, if it's your job, it totally makes sense. But if there's anything else you'd like to share, but how have coasters and parks had a significant positive impact on you, kind of going beyond facing your fears, like just them being in your life? What are the positive impacts for you?
Yeah, I mean, you said, it's the low-hanging fruit. Obviously, this is what got me into this career, right, as an engineer.
Yeah.
So that's been big. The social aspect of the whole coaster enthusiast community has been fun too. I used to build model roller coasters, and I was active on like SS coasters and those forums. And then I used to be on Theme Park Review on those forums for a little bit, and just meeting different people on the internet. Currently, I'm part of the Buzzed Bars Coaster Club. On their Discord. Yeah. And I hang out with those guys. I've made a lot of good friends riding coasters. I've had a lot of good times with existing friends, just going to theme parks and hanging out there and that kind of thing. And that's been really big for me, I think.
Nice. Yeah. The social aspects of coasters and parks are very commonly brought up with this question. And certainly, while I technically have never gone through one of these interviews, I've just done them. I've never been interviewed on the podcast for the most part. I was introduced, along with the other producer at the time when we first started the show. But if I were interviewed these same questions, that the social aspects would be a big part of my answer. Absolutely. So I can relate. So you mentioned buzz bars. So, before I ask this kind of next question, are you over 21?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. So are you part of buzz bars? Do you like kind of the drinking and coastering kind of thing, or is it not related?
It's not actually related. I found the Drunk Writers podcast actually before they started Buzz Bars, just because they had some really cool guests on that I wanted to listen to, and I liked the environment of it. Of we're not taking ourselves too seriously, but we're just having fun out here as a coaster club. But we're also a bunch of enthusiasts. We love riding coasters and talking about coasters and traveling, those kinds of things.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not part of Buzz Bars because I'm already part of two other clubs. But I have a number of friends, especially here in Orlando, that are big into buzz bars. The probably one that you know of well is Austin Rodzanek, who he's Amusement Insider. I bet you've met him. Probably.
Okay, I've ran into him, but actually not at a buzz bars event. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's a great guy. I've known him for years. He was on the season 1 of this podcast. He and I dove off into Velocicoaster in his interview, because Velocicoaster was just opening when that happened. But yeah, he's a great guy. But yeah, so Buzz Bars I've heard is good, really good. But I'm part of Ace and Coaster Crew. In terms of getting exposed to other clubs, or you're trying to like other events and things like that. Like I don't think Buzz Bars does too much internationally. It's more like just here in the U.S., right?
Yeah, they've done one. They call them stumbles, their events. They've done one stumble in Poland. But other than that, it's mostly just the US. Yeah,
I remember I did hear about that one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you're looking to branch out, and because I know you like kind of the laid back, not taking themselves too seriously aspect of buzz bars, which I totally get, I encourage you to check out Coaster Crew. Coaster Crew's run and owned by a good friend of mine, Tim Holleran, who interviewed him in the second season of the podcast. And he's a great guy, lives in Orlando, and he runs great events, and he doesn't, it's just about having fun. It's it's the only club that I've seen do this at Hollywood Nights. I've been out, I'm going again this year, I've been there twice. He makes sure that all of the Coaster Crew people that are there, that they gather over by the picnic area, like during one of the meals, and get to do a group photo together and ride together. Like I said, the Dollywood event that I'm going to go to, where I'm going to get to ride your Skyline Ranch coaster, that's a Coaster Crew event. I did it last year. It's so much fun. But it's a great club, and they do international trips. I'm actually doing an international trip with them this year to Scandinavia. Yeah. So nice. Encourage you. Yeah. They do international trips every couple of years. So yeah, check them out if you're ever looking to expand. But anyways,
I'll check them out.
At least, for sure. So next few questions are kind of continuing kind of the coaster journey and just your personal love of coasters and whatnot. This one's always a fun one. So what would you say has been your craziest moment on a coaster? Now, it could be work related, maybe, whatever it may be that you can share at least publicly. What would you say is your craziest moment? Yeah.
I mean, some crazy things happened at Cedar Point. I'm not sure how much I should talk about there, but on the employee ride nights, they run the rides with all the stops pulled out. It's a lot of fun being able to have those kind of the best version of the Cedar Point roller coasters is what I'll say. You get to ride Steel Vengeance, 4 or 5 times in a row, or those kinds of things that you don't normally get to do, just visiting the park. I'd say those are some of my craziest experiences. I haven't had anything crazy as far as I never ended up getting a rollback on Top of Dragster, unfortunately, or I've never been evac from a ride. I've performed an evac, but I haven't myself been evacuated from a ride or anything like that. Mostly, smooth running as far as riding roller coasters. But yeah, those employee ride nights at Cedar Point were something else. So it was a real good time. That's
pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm assuming like Steel Vengeance runs trimless, right?
Unfortunately, no. Steel Vengeance doesn't run trimless, but they do run it, max capacity, and they're doing it at night, so the ride's already warmed up and everything. They can't turn off the trims on that ride, as far as I'm aware. Raptor did run trimless though, and that was really cool. Okay.
So I know that B&M, their launch coasters, and granted they don't have many, and well, Hulk is one, but I mean they're LSM launch coasters. And I know Intamin, my favorite manufacturer, their LSM coasters, they can operate in what's called boost mode. So I believe that Maverick probably has that, although it's one of the earlier of the Blitz coasters. I can imagine though it probably can't be used because how intense Maverick is. So I'm guessing that like you didn't experience Maverick in like a boost mode, right?
Not that I'm aware, but it was running really, really fast on Employee Ride Night. So I wouldn't be surprised if they either turned the trims off the airtime hill or turned the launch up a little bit. That second half especially was flying through that ride. But I never really got to work out much outside of Corkscrew, so I don't know if that's something they would be able to do or be allowed to do. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was something that was happening that night. So,
yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I get it. Not quite the same thing, but I've never, well, I always mistakenly say this. I actually have worked for the parks. Very first job when I was like 14 to 16 years old, I worked at a very small amusement park called Fantasy Island. It's almost like an outdoor FEC. And all it had coaster-wise was a dragon wagon. And I worked in like the cotton candy, lemonade, like food stands for those 3 summers. So that, but other than that, I've not worked in the industry.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I have, I'm blessed with some awesome friends. And I have cast member friends, for example, at Disney here in Florida. And again, nothing coaster related, but I've been to several cast member events. Like I got to ride Tron cast member previews. Just got to see a Happily Ever After preview for its return. That was cast member preview a couple weeks ago. That was fun. But yeah, I mean, I can imagine like at a place like Cedar Point, like all coaster focused, like for a coaster enthusiast, how awesome that would be for an employee ride night. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. All right, so that's a good craziest moment. So what about what is your favorite coaster?
My favorite coaster recently got updated on a trip I took out to Germany for work, but I convinced them to let me take an extra day. Went out to Phantasialand and rode Fly and just fell in love with that ride.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy.
That's
because you are the first. You're the first one from the U.S. We did an interview here for season 3 with a friend of mine who's based in Switzerland. And he goes to Phantasialand, especially Europa Park, all the time. And his number 1 is Ride to Happiness, and then Fly and Terran are right up there. But but anyway, you're the first U.S. guy, because I travel a lot, but not a lot of my friends get outside the country. So that's, first of all, that's really awesome. Again, I know Wiegand's based in the U.S. or based in Germany, excuse me. And so that's cool. You got to go out there for a work trip, and that's so cool because that's, again, I could so much relate here because with the work travels I've done overseas, I flexed like nobody's business. Weekends and taking time off and to get to international credits. I've got every Disney park. I've been to every Disney park in the world. I've been all 3 Hour 40s. I've been on Formula Rossa. I mean, I feel very fortunate. I don't take my life for granted. I live life to the fullest. I do whatever I can. I take it by the reins. But anyway, so that's cool that you flex like that. My encouragement to you, you're a younger guy, is keep doing that. Like if you get to go back to Germany, go to Europa Park, hit other parks, Belgium, Netherlands, just wherever else you maybe you'll travel to. But make the most of it. And I can tell you that for what it's worth, we have a number of younger listeners to this show, and you're inspiring them right now, because some that we've interviewed, some that are listeners, they're always asking, because they know I've traveled a lot. Andrew, what kind of job do you have? Like, what should I go to college for? And you were talking about mechanical engineering, and how can I design coasters? I want to design coasters. So again, you're living the dream of so many people out there, and I'm sure you probably already know that. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, I'm honored to be able to be in that position. I think it's been really cool working this job, and excited to see where it takes me.
Awesome. Love the positivity. All right. So All right, we got to talk about Fantasioland a little bit. We got to nerd out on Fantasioland. So, because it is my favorite park in the world.
It's incredible.
Yeah, with Universal Orlando being right behind it. But when did you go there?
This was really recently in January, or late January, early February, just right at the end of the month there.
Oh, this year?
Yep, this year, yeah.
So you went to Vintertron?
Yep. Mm-hmm. It was very cold.
Okay, you did it. Well, it was cold, but you did it the right way because you got to get those night rides, right?
Yeah, no, I got a night ride on Terran. Yeah.
Good. And also on Fly?
Unfortunately, I did not get a night ride on Fly. It was fairly crowded day I was there, actually. It was a Sunday, so it was a weekend.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was telling you, I went there for the first time October last year, just normal operations, which was great. Because I got to ride River Quest, because I love rapids rides. It's a great rapids ride, but that's the one ride that's closed during Vintertron. But then I went back.
Chiapas was closed for me as well, unfortunately.
Chiapas was closed in January. Oh, that's too bad. Mm-hmm. If you like log flumes, obviously, I'm sure you want to go back there anyway because your favorite place is there now. But get on Chiapas; it's incredible.
I've heard,
the drop, the backward section, everything is amazing. But okay, so you got those night rides in. Okay, so how does Terran rank for you?
It's in the top 20. The top 20 is kind of the elite section of my rankings. It's hard to rank within that 20 because they're all such great rides. It's just barely above Maverick, I believe.
Oh, sure, that makes sense. So it would be ahead of Maverick. Now, have you ridden Velocicoaster?
Yeah. I have ridden Velocicoaster. That's my number 3, I want to say.
Okay, so it's up there. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. I'm just curious because, again, Intamin guys, I'm nerding out here. Velocicoaster was my number 1 for a couple of years, but Terran, the night ride on it, put it just above Velocicoaster. So, and again, this is all opinions. I'm just curious.
Of course.
You know, how things differ for you. But Fly is number 3, and then Right to Happen is number 4. So tell me what makes Fly your number 1. Why is it your number 1?
I've always loved flying coasters. I was one of the first years I was really going to Kings Island frequently was 2007 when Firehawk first opened. And I loved that ride. And then, of course, you know, the Flying Dutchman, in my opinion, are kind of the lower tier of flying coasters, right? Once I got on Tatsu at Magic Mountain, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I'd already liked Firehawk. I was just blown away by Tatsu. And then, you know, being on the forums and everything, I'd seen Fly under construction. I'm like, this thing's going to be incredible. I have to get on this ride as soon as I get a chance. So, I mean, in a sense, it was a dream come true. I got to Fantasioland, went straight to Fly. I'm like, I'm not missing this ride. I want to ride this ride. I want to experience this. And when I got off the ride, I was just shaking. I'm like, that was incredible. That was everything I'd hoped it would be. It really just kind of hit that soft spot for me of flying coasters. So
nice. That's incredible. So when you went to Fantasioland, did you stay on property or off property?
No, I stayed off property.
Okay. So I'm going to probably give you a tip here because obviously you're going to go back to Fantasioland. I'm making it a point to make an annual pilgrimage to Europa Park and Fantasioland because they're both the top 5 parks for me. And along with going to other parks in Europe as well. But anyways, how much did the theming, the visual and or the auditory theming on Fly impact you as far as being your favorite coaster?
I think it would have been really high even without it, but the theming really is kind of what makes that ride, right? You're just flying through those buildings and you have all the near misses and you're going underground and under the track, all these crossovers and everything. But I'd say one of the best moments on that coaster is when you're going up that lift hill kind of in the dark there and you have the show playing on the screen and then it flips you into the flying position. It's just such a cool feeling.
Yes. And thank you for being vague there. A lot of people don't want to know how the incredible loading system works on Fly. And so we've really not really talked about, so we don't really talk about it much in the show, if at all. But I was blown away when again, being an engineer, when I saw how that works, I'm like, wow, because again, not getting to how it loads, but because of how it loads, having that little dark ride section with the music and those great visuals. Did you, by the way, just curious, when you were there, did you wind up buying any of the CDs they sell for the music they have in the park?
No, I didn't know they had those actually.
So in the main shop in Berlin, there's like that main gift shop there.
Yeah.
So in the Berlin section, that's where they sell the CDs, and they're behind the registers. Okay. That's why you probably knows. So I think I have like almost all of them. I listen to the music all the time. I have like a playlist because I put them on my Apple Music, and especially the music to fly. All that music was done, or should I say Rookburg. All that music was done by Emascore. They're European. Okay. They do amazing theme park music. That is some of the best work they've done. So Fly is so high for me. The theming, the air time, just the loading system, the dark ride section, and Rookburg, I think, is one of the best theme lands, if not the best theme land in the world. It's just so
it's incredible.
Yeah. So my recommendation to you, and then we'll move on to the next question, is next time you go there, I did this both times I went there, and I loved it so much the first time, I did it again. Is to do the Charles Lindbergh package, the Hotel Charles Lindbergh package. It's a great value. It runs like US dollars. It runs around $350 or so. Okay. And you get, that's for one person, and you get 2-day ticket to Phantasialand. You get 2 fast passes. The Charles Lindbergh tickets, as they're called, for Fly. You get a gourmet table service dinner in the restaurant Urek, it's called in the hotel, and you get a breakfast the next day. And the hotel's awesome, the Capsule Hotel. And because you saw it's kind of all outside there with the railings. You get to go really high up on the hotel. Wherever you're staying, you can go throughout the hotel and take gorgeous pictures of Rookburg and Fly. But another really cool thing you get to do as a hotel guest is the night you're there, the one night between your 2 park days. You long after the park's closed, it's quiet, everyone's gone. The lights are on. Did you get to see Rookburg at night at least, or no?
I think I walked over there at night. Yeah,
those blue and red lights they have. The lights are on, the music's playing, coaster's not running. You can walk into Rookburg in the middle of a park that's closed as a hotel guest. You can go down there until I think 11 p.m. or something, midnight or something. So these are all, and it's an amazing experience, and it's a great value. But anyways, I recommend doing that next time. Yeah.
I'm sure I will. So anyways, it's my favorite ride, right? So gotta get the full experience there.
Oh yeah, and the theming inside the hotel is as amazing as it is outside what you've already seen. It's cool. So Phantasialand, again, they're my favorite park in the world. They knock everything out of the park. So that was a nice surprise. Thanks for sharing your favorite coaster. That was fun to talk about my favorite park. Yeah, that's so cool. All right, so I'm guessing it's not at Phantasialand, but what is your least favorite coaster?
This is actually a hard one because growing up with Kings Island, which has, especially back in the day, back before Diamondback was built, a very mixed bag of good and bad coasters. I kind of learned to tolerate the bad ones. And, fairly early on in my enthusiast career, I realized I'm happier just being on a coaster than not. There aren't very many rides that I'm like, I regret riding that, if any. The only one that comes to mind, the only ride in my recent memory that I remember being like, maybe that wasn't worth it, that was not a good ride, was actually Kitty Hawk at Carowinds. I don't know. So I thought it would be fun, like it's not called Runaway Reptar, whatever the one at Kings Island is called now. It rode rougher for me. Maybe it was, I didn't have the same memory of when I'd ridden it as a kid, but and it, it was a kiddie cred, so I was riding it just to get the cred. But yeah, for some reason that ride hit me wrong, came across wrong or whatever.
I totally get it. And, David, he's in the background. Sometimes he jumps into episodes, and he's probably busy right now because I know he would jump in otherwise, because that's one of his least favorites, and the head banging and everything, as they're affectionately called, the hang bangs. And I just got to, I just got to take a quick aside, because between what you just mentioned there, and the last question,
Yeah.
I got to say, I love Intamin, but there are several manufacturers that I've approached interviewing, because I go to IAPA every year, and I've got friends that work with these manufacturers, the ones I mentioned earlier, that they've got me connected with them. But there's certain manufacturers, they don't want to be interviewed. And I found out why. It's because they want the parks that own the product to do the interviews. They want to remain in the background. They don't want to stick out.
Gotcha.
Which I respect. And unfortunately, one of those is Vekoma. But I love Vekoma. I tagged them when I rode Fly and how much I love it. And in Tron, they did them. Tron's my favorite Disney coaster. I got to say, wow, what a transformation Vekoma has gone through.
Oh, absolutely.
I rode Stealth, which is now Nighthawk, opening year, and I loved it. But like you said, the Flying Dutchman, they were rough around the edges, profiling issues, comfort issues. And, I'm sure you won't disagree with this, given you're number one. Vekoma completely redeemed themselves with their second gen model, with the Fly model. I mean, night and day. And likewise, these new junior coasters, they have things like Dragonfly or Dollywood, and there's that Phoenix at Coney Island, and the one here we have at Fun Spot here in Orlando. These newer junior style with the lap bar only and everything. They're great coasters. I mean, they're family ones, but they're really fun. They're really fun. So they really redeem themselves. So, hey, not everyone starts off at the top. Some people you got to work up. And the point is they've gotten better, and my hat's off to them. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about your employer. You're wearing the shirt there. Again, our listeners can't see that 'cause the podcast, but you're wearing a Wiegand shirt. That's awesome. Yep. So I wanted to touch upon, related to that real quick, just something funny I observed.
Sure.
You were talking about how you got your job with them. So do you ever go by Jake, by the way? Is always Jacob? Jacob,
usually.
Okay. So first, you know that Jake, of course, is the diminutive of Jake. So
sure.
There is something about I'm being funny here in a way, but there's something about people with the name Jacob or Jake that work in the industry and the funny ways they get jobs. And what I mean by this is you're the second, and again, it's not uncommon, but it's not terribly common for people to get jobs by directly going to IAPA, and it happens. And it's IAPA, typically it's more of a sales environment, to sell product, but this is sort of a little bit of a tragic thing, but there was this guy named Jake, younger guy like yourself, and he went to IAPA. He loved RMC, talked to Fred. This is, I think, in 2019, got a job with RMC. Unfortunately, he passed away in an accident not related to RMC.
Oh, no.
I won't go into the specifics of it, but he passed away in September 2020, and it was really tragic. He was a very brilliant guy. He was building coasters for RMC prior to that, and in the pandemic, he got a different job in the industry, and it was just some of those fluke things that happens. But anyways, he got his job from RMC, by going to them at IAPA. And you're Jake, and you did the same thing with Wiegand. And then of course there is also another Jake from RMC, Jake Kilcup. Yeah, you probably know his story. Office Max working there, and they come in there and they and they're like, "Oh, do you know AutoCAD at all? You can help us with that. Like, you want to design coasters?" And and he's such an awesome, positive guy, and he got the job. And anyway, it's kind of fun. But anyway, so you got your job with Wiegand. Yeah. So, and I realize you're new to the company, so I'm not sure how much you're versed on, but I'm curious, and I'm sure some of our listeners are curious to know, what is the history of Wiegand, and then maybe talk about, of course, since given your experience, about designing and building mountain coasters for them.
Sure. Yeah. And just to loop around, to clarify, I got the job in August, and IAPA was all the way back in November. It was kind of more of a reconnection with Wiegand that actually got me the job. But it was that first IAPA contact that I got contacts with a bunch of different companies, not just Wiegand, that really kind of led to that. But the history of Wiegand, I ran through this with my boss beforehand just to make sure I was getting things right.
Great.
Obviously, it's a company that started in Germany. Joseph Wiegand was the founder of the company. In 1975, he had built his first alpine slide, out of stainless steel. He wanted to see like these ski resorts have more summer activities, and these ski resorts, of course, wanted to pull in the summer revenue. And they call it the summer toboggan. The German word for it translates to summer toboggan, but that's the alpine slide. So they built a few of those, and then in 1997, Joseph Wiegand got the idea to build an alpine coaster, which is, of course, kind of a mix between the alpine slide concept and a roller coaster, right? Where you still have the patron brake, you're still in control, and you're still going down a mountain, but you're on a coaster track. And that actually ended up having a huge advantage in that, whereas the alpine slide has to be built along the ground, the coaster track can rise off the ground a little bit. So even if you don't have the perfect grade on your terrain, you can still build a coaster by making these turns and stuff that go up in the air a little bit, and then come back down to the ground, and all these different things. It's a lot more versatile of a system. Right. And of course, more reliable. It's safer. You don't fall off the tracks on an alpine coaster. But you occasionally get derailed on those alpine slides, those kinds of things. So that's how the alpine coaster was born. Joseph Wiegand invented that out in Germany. The first one in the U.S. was built by my boss, Torsten Weddle. He runs the U.S. office and the U.S. side of Wiegand here. Okay. That was out in Glenwood Springs. That was built in 2006, and that kind of got them turned into an adventure park. Really kicked them off, and you've seen now they've got Defiance. They've got all these. They've got the drop tower, the swing, and everything. Yeah, it's a really cool place. But yeah, we built that alpine coaster back in 2006, and from there, the alpine coaster in the U.S. market really took off. After Glenwood Springs, the ski resort industry was really kind of what picked up on it a lot. You see them at like Park City, at like Heavenly Resort, Vail Resort, those kinds of places. That was difficult at first because a lot of ski resorts are built on U.S. Forest Service land. Yeah. And for a while, the U.S. Forest Service didn't want to approve alpine coasters on their land. But I believe the first one they approved would have been Vail back in like 2012 or something like that. And we've been able to work with the U.S. Forest Service since then on a number of projects at different ski resorts that are owned by the U.S. Forest Service. Not the land is owned by the U.S. Forest Service, and the ski resorts run privately. So that really kind of gave us a leg up in the industry to the point where, as far as I'm aware, all the ski resorts that want a mountain coaster have either built one or have talked to us at some point or talked to one of our competitors at some point to build a mountain coaster. So now you see the market shifting more towards kind of the standalone rides, a lot of what you see in like Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area, or like adventure parks that kind of build up around these alpine coasters. And my bosses, Torsten and his wife, Jessica, Torsten actually met Jessica while he was building the Glenwood coaster, and they got married, and they've been running the company together basically ever since then. They're building their own ride up in Lakeside, Montana. It's near Kalispell, kind of close to Glacier National Park. And once that opens, Montana hasn't had a roller coaster in a while, and it's not a roller coaster, it's an alpine coaster, right? But Montana will have a coaster again once that opens here. They're hoping to open up in May. So,
nice. Now you said it's their own, so they're going to own it?
Yep, they're the owners of the ride.
Oh, okay. So, is it just going to be a one-off thing, or is there other things there that are part of that where it is?
For now, it's just a standalone coaster. It's kind of just a roadside attraction. If you're going to Glacier National Park or to Flathead Lake is where the ride is. Come ride this ride. And they're not building it for Wiegand, but because they work for Wiegand, it's kind of like almost a family project. Where they're like, they always kind of wanted to build their own ride, and now they get to, and it's here in Montana, which is where they love to be. It's a great place for the company, and it's the first coaster in Montana in a while. So we're excited for that.
Cool. That's really cool. Nice. Yeah, when I get out to Montana, I'll definitely have to ride it. That's for sure. That's great.
Yeah, give you an excuse to come to Montana.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I big sky country. I mean, again, like I was saying earlier, I've gotten a sense of how beautiful it is remotely, and I'd love to see it. And I love national parks and hiking and all
Yeah.
that. That'd be great. So, you mentioned Glenwood. I mentioned earlier about hopefully hitting the New Braunfels area one, the kind of hill country one next year when I go out to that road trip. That road trip, I'm planning on continuing out to Colorado. I've got a bunch of friends out there I want to see. I've never been. I really want to go and, ride the Mountain Coaster, ride Defiance, etc. So hopefully I get to ride that next year and so forth. But, you're talking about alpine slides. So the ones that Wiegand made in the early days, those were the stainless steel ones?
Yeah. Wiegand's only ever built stainless steel alpine slides. So.
Got it. Do those use the same kind of cars as the cement trough ones do, or is it different?
I couldn't tell you. We don't actually build alpine slides in the U.S., mostly for liability reasons. We have one. We've got Olympic Park in Park City, Utah, but that was built a while ago, and we haven't built one in the U.S. since. So
yeah, they're not really built much here in the U.S. anymore, like you said, for insurance and safety reasons. Yeah, but when I was a kid, I grew up in New Jersey, which is near the infamous Action Park.
Yeah,
and that's the Valley Valley Forge ski resort, whatever it's called over there, in northern New Jersey. And I've ridden the alpine slides there. I've ridden the ones up in New England, like New Hampshire area, where I went to camp as a teenager. And how teenagers are, tend to be you're not as careful as an adult. Oftentimes, teenagers do stupid things, and I like speed, so I was pushing things too much, and I've fallen off once in New Hampshire, like once or twice, and got the rash, the rash for a while, and it's just, it's the worst possible combination. That the ones where it happened, they were a combination of water parks and alpine slides in the summer. So I had my bathing suit on, it's kind of like a short kind of thing, and I think I wore a t-shirt, so like my skin was exposed, and my leg got all it's a badge of courage or whateber, but I would still ride. I think I'd still ride alpine slides. I haven't ridden them in years, but I would be a little more careful about the stick. But, but that does raise the question. That was something I've wondered about. Now, I've been on quite a few of your mountain coasters, and I've never really, even though I'm an engineer, I've never really looked at this for whatever reason. But do the cars that you guys have on your alpine coasters, are they in any way like conventional steel coasters, where they've got like side and upstop wheels, like where they're attached to the track, or are they separate? Like what keeps them on the track, I guess, is what I mean.
Yeah. I guess kind of an interesting way to approach this answer is we've been building what we call the Alpine Coaster 2.0, the Gen 2 Alpine Coaster. And we built the first one in Skyland Ranch, which is the one you're about to go ride. And you'll notice as an enthusiast and as an engineer, you'll probably notice quite a few differences on the ride system, where the 2.0 model has the track like a typical roller coaster, where you have the side wheels kind of hugging the track and then an upstop wheel underneath. And so that's got that new track system. The first gen model, the 1.0 model, as we call it, does have side wheels as well. They run all on the inside of the brake rails. So there's the main running rails, and then there's the brake rails. The brake rails have the side wheels on them, and then there's just an aluminum block underneath that acts as the upstop there. So the sleds cannot come off the track.
And that's why, because see, here's the thing. I'm not, again, we talked about fear earlier. I'm not scared of coasters or anything like that, but I remember what happened to me with alpine slides. And so the first couple of mountain coasters that I rode, I couldn't help but compare the two because there's similarities. And I'm like, do I push the stick forward or not? I remember talking to one of my buddies, my buddy Bradley, who's been on many of these, and he's like, yeah, you can push it all the way forward. Just, as long as there's no one in front of you, of course you got to watch out for that. And of course there's, and you guys also, even in the 1.0, you guys have like built-in systems where the cars sense each other and it'll brake if it gets too close or something, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So mountain coasters, your alpine coasters are very safe.
Yeah.
Which is great.
I mean, they live up to all the modern engineering standards. I am personally very involved in making sure that we're following the American standards specifically, there are quite a few features, a lot of redundancies too on the Alpine coaster. Of course, we do want patrons to be aware and be riding the ride actively and making sure they're not getting too close. But we do have electronic computer systems that are that are monitoring the distance between sleds, monitoring the maximum speed of the sleds, and monitoring like where the end of the track is and that kind of thing that do assist with the rider braking to make sure that the ride is safe, even if the riders aren't performing all their responsibilities properly.
Right. Yeah, because that's basically in place of having block brakes. Yeah, makes sense. Gotcha. So we've already kind of been talking about this, but I guess I'll ask it this way. Would you say there's any other unique features that you'd like to touch upon that set mountain coasters apart from conventional steel and wooden coasters?
Yeah, actually, I think we at Wiegand are actually fairly careful about distinguishing mountain coasters from roller coasters. And the main thing with that being that it's a patron-directed ride. So you have the brakes, you control your own experience, and that way it's accessible to anyone in the family, right? If you're a thrill seeker, you can get on the ride, push the brake levers forward, and just let the thing go. But if you're grandma and you want to take the little toddler, or as long as they're tall enough, right, on the ride, then you can go slow. You can go not super slow, but you can keep it slow so it's not too intense of a ride. You're just kind of going for a nice ride through the woods. You have that control over your ride. That's one of the biggest things from an engineering standpoint. And you might be a little bit interested in this as an engineer. The construction of an alpine coaster is actually quite a bit different. We don't have pre-manufactured tracks like you see, shipping to the parks in chunks already. We just have our stainless steel pipes, and then we have our install crews who can weld on site. And they build the coaster to the terrain. With mountains, you get the terrain changing quite a bit. And for the most part, our track does not use foundations. There are a couple spots like near the bull wheels around the station, or if we have particularly high sections of the ride, we will put in foundations. But most of the track just runs on these ground footers with ground nails in them. And those can actually be adjusted throughout the coaster's lifetime. So as they're installing it, they can really build it to the terrain. And then the maintenance crews down the road, if the ground starts to get washed up and you get a loose footer, they can extend out that leg and get it back on the ground and have the ride adjust with the mountain, I guess.
I see. Interesting. So that begs the question, because I know I've got a friend of mine, his family actually owns, I think I've never been there, but I think it's confusingly called Magic Mountain or something like that. It's at Big Bear.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And they own, I think one of your coasters. I need to get out there.
They do. Yep.
They'll get me in for free because they own the place. But anyway, I don't go to California, that part of California much. But anyway, so that's an earthquake country. So given that there's no concrete footers and things like that, does that make your mountain coasters have more give with earthquakes? Like, do they weather earthquakes better, or?
I don't know about earthquakes. I don't think that's necessarily the situation we have in mind when it comes to that footer system. But obviously, if we're building one like in LA or near LA near Big Bear up there for that ride, we have calculations just like anyone building a structure down there would for seismic loads and those kinds of things.
I see. So it's the mechanical engineering behind it. Makes sense. That's obviously you. Well, have you had to design a mountain coaster yet for an environment like that, or has that not come up for you personally yet?
For me personally, I haven't gotten so far in the design stage to really be thinking about that, except for with one, which actually by the time this drops will be fairly well known. It's not a secret now either, but Mammoth Mountain is currently building a coaster. So
out in California, Mammoth out near Yosemite.
Yep, Mammoth.
Oh, nice.
In Mammoth Lakes, near Mammoth Mountain Resort, the ski resort. They have like 700 inches of snow right now, which is ridiculous. But we're planning on starting out there in July, so I guess probably before this drops. Yep.
Nice. Now, do you ever get travel to sites where the installs are happening, or is that not part of your role?
I do occasionally. The other engineer in the office has more experience with that, so he's the one that's more likely to go on site. If we need someone on site, and then he'll go and do the commissioning of the rides. He'll go do the track inspection, figure out what was installed. Like I said, it's not pre-manufactured pieces. So we're going to go at the end of the ride, see, all right, what actually was put in here.
Gotcha.
And then keep an eye on like the programming of the ride, watch over kind of their maintenance and operations team as they run the ride for a couple of days, those kinds of things. He's been doing a lot of that. They hired me on more actually for dry slides. So I've been working with a lot of like malls and private owners and those kinds of things to build dry slides. So I haven't had the opportunity to go on site as much. I have been out a couple of times though. And
gotcha.
It's always cool to see the rides out there.
Oh yeah. Well, if you ever, whether it be as part of a work trip or just separately, have you been to Mammoth Lakes before, by the way, or no?
I haven't actually.
Okay. Cause I've been there. I'm not a skier. I do not ski.
I do ski, but I haven't been out there, but yeah.
Oh, okay. It looks like, I mean, I don't know if I don't ski. I don't know how good the mountain is there, but it looked pretty cool. But I was there in the summer end of summer in September, because I went to Yosemite once, and I like to stay with the hotel chain I use, which is Marriott.
Yeah.
Because points and earning status. I love loyalty programs. I'm loyal to them. We were going there for hiking and to go to Yosemite. Never been to Yosemite, and the nearest Marriott, at least at the time, was the Westin in Mammoth Lakes, and it's right at the ski resort there. And a cute town. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. Imagine in the winter, it's maybe even prettier. Maybe not with 7 inches of snow though. It's crazy out there. But yeah, Mammoth Lakes is really cool though. It's I'd happily go back there and to ride a mountain coaster. That's cool that they're getting one. Thanks for sharing that little tidbit. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've been in talks with them for years. So this has been something that's been thrown around. It's been in news articles before that this is something that's probably going to happen, and we're excited that it finally is happening. And that I actually did a fair amount of design work on that. There was a design in place already. I had to redesign the bottom half of it. So once that gets built, that'll be kind of my first ride that I designed in a sense. So I'm excited for that as well, of course.
Very cool. I mean, you're very new to the company. It's been less than a year. So yeah, that's very cool. You already got your signature on something, so to speak. Yeah, nice.
Yep.
So, I mentioned before we started recording, one of the other manufacturers we interviewed here in season 3 of the podcast is Mora Rides, also based in Germany. And we were talking about their spike coaster technology, the cruise ship stuff. And I recently myself I've gone on cruises before, loved it, but just didn't do one for years. And I just did another one recently. Now I'm like totally into cruising again. I just booked 2 more cruises, and I've not booked any other Carnival without their ships that like the Mardi Gras that have the spike coaster, but I eventually want to do that. But anyways, Steve Bonney, the person from Mara that we interviewed, talked a lot about the spike coaster, really interesting stuff. And one of the things he mentioned is, because the spike, it's sort of like the mountain coasters in the controllability, the speed, it's powered, but he talked about they're offering a model now where it doesn't have that control aspect anymore, where it's a train, same technology, similar, maybe larger tracks. Is that something that you guys could do or have thought about doing? Again, you lose the control aspect of doing like maybe a bit of a larger mountain coaster, but same kind of tech, but with a increase in the capacity. Is that something that's a possibility, or is it not?
I mean, we're getting kind of into the Wiegand Germany versus Wiegand US here a little bit as well.
Okay. How's that? Like,
I mean, we work very closely with them. They do a lot of kind of the design work as far as like the sleds and the actual ride system itself, and those kinds of things. And here in the US, we do the site-specific design work, because every alpine coaster has to be design site-specific, right? It's going on a hill.
Got it.
Okay, and so out in Germany, I know they have built 2 rides that don't use brake levers. As far as I'm aware, that's not something we're really bringing over here to the US right now, but it's something that they've experimented with and tried out a little bit. So
I see. Was that still like a single dual occupancy, or was it a longer?
No, it's still single dual occupancy.
Got it. But bottom line is what you're saying is that any changes, any like new designs or new technology would come driven by Germany, by the facility there. Headquarters.
Yeah, for like the ride system itself. Yeah, that would come more from the German office.
That makes sense. Okay, got it. So besides things you've kind of already mentioned, because you kind of already talked about this, but are there any other challenges that you guys face in designing or building a mountain coaster?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge is that every single ride has to be different, right? Every ride's unique, and it's always striking the balance between a number of different factors with a customer when they come to us for an alpine coaster. Like, first of all, is the terrain good for an alpine coaster? We have specific grade requirements that we need when we're building the coaster, and then of course soil bearing requirements, like those kinds of things. And then are there interesting features around, like do they want to go around a big tree or by a river or those kinds of things? And then is that practical to do that? Like if we're going down the hill and we go over to this river, do we get stuck in another canyon and we can't get the track back to the station building, or other logistical things? Does this go over a cliff? Like we obviously can't build down a cliff, right?
Right.
Yeah. So the terrain itself is always kind of the biggest challenge. When a customer calls us, we're like, all right, what does your terrain look like? Can we take a look at it? Can we try our hand at drawing up a roller coaster, a mountain coaster on this ground? And if we can figure something out, great. We always try to come up with a creative solution for anyone that comes to us, right? But some terrain is more difficult than others to build on, and we just have to kind of work around that. And then you have to balance other factors, like if it's steeper terrain, you're going to have more sections of the track that are higher up, and that's going to cost more, right? You've got more supports, more material. It's harder to install if it's higher off the ground. And other cost factors as well. How long does the customer want the ride? And are they willing to pay to have a longer ride, to have that second or third up track, like you see on Rocky Top, where they've got 4 lift systems on that ride, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's, every ride has to be designed unique. And with that comes just the natural challenges of having to come up with creative solutions for different situations that we're presented with.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, in a way, like, something that's well known, especially, Six Flags, other parks sometimes have these. And as enthusiasts, from a theming perspective, these are sometimes kind of like looked upon poorly, is like a parking lot coaster. And what you guys do is the reverse of that, because you're not dealing with flat terrain and you're dealing with all the challenges. And that's where your mechanical engineering background comes in, physics, and for sure. Got it.
Yeah.
So, do you have a favorite Wiegand coaster? Well, how many? Again, I know you're new to the company, but how many Wiegand coasters would you say you've been on, roughly speaking?
I've been on probably about 10.
Nice.
Yeah, I definitely wanting to get on more. We did our Christmas party. Most of that came from, we did our Christmas party out in the Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge area. And we did an alpine coaster tour back in December, and rode almost all the rides out there. We missed 1 or 2 of them, but of the ones I've ridden out in Pigeon Forge, I really liked the Goats coaster, the one that Goats on the Roof.
Yeah, Goats on the Roof's awesome. Yeah.
It's just a quirky ride. It's got a few jumps that can give you little pops of airtime. It's got some cool turns in it. For the most part, it's fairly low to the ground, which is always kind of a fun feature. You feel like you're kind of sledding down the ground. But of the ones I've ridden, I like them all for different reasons. Smoky Mountain is one of our most popular ones out there. Like you said, it's a long ride. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. Very good, very nice scenery. Rocky Top's got the theming. When I talk to enthusiasts about mountain coasters in Pigeon Forge, a lot of them bring up Rocky Top. They love that ride. And we're actually building another one that might actually be open by the time this drops. Lost Mine in Pigeon Forge. It's kind of like Rocky Top. It's got 4 lift systems on it, and they're doing this whole mining theme. It's going to be really, really cool. Would recommend going and checking that one out once it opens. Yep, that should open probably early to mid-August. Would be my guess.
August. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I was going to say you got me excited because my friends that I'm going to be joining at the Coaster Crew event at Dollywood, they're big credit hunters.
Yeah,
I want to use a PG term there. He's using a different term, but anyway. So they, you know what I mean. Anyway, so they would have been like so excited because they're all talking about how we're going to go to Skyland Ranch And I'm like, guys,
Yeah.
no, but it won't be open by then. It makes sense. But yeah,
And that one,
yeah.
That ride's also going to be a 2.0, as is the one at Mammoth, as is the one we're currently building at Anakista and Gatlinburg. And I really, really like the new 2.0 system. It's a lot smoother. We actually took away the physical braking rails and replaced it just with a big aluminum fin. So we have eddy current brakes. So it's quieter, it's smoother. It's a smoother braking experience. The sleds are redesigned, so you can theme the sleds now. We've got decals on our new 2.0 sleds that Anakista is going to be themed to the Hellbender salamander that they have down in the Smoky Mountains. And those are some really cool decals on the sleds there. So I give you some of my favorite rides, and I think as we roll out more second gen models, that there will be even more favorites for me as these get built, just because that second gen model is really cool and rides really, really nicely.
Nice. So yeah, that's cool. I've been to Anakista. Now, the single rail coaster that's there now, that's not one of yours, right? That's a different company.
No, that's not. Mm-hmm. That's
Sunkid.
Well, they used to be Brandauer. They're now part of Sunkid. So.
Okay.
But we're building an Alpine Coaster 2.0 on another part of Anakista, and we're actually also building that one. That one's supposed to open mid-May. There might be a few construction delays with that, but we'll see. We're doing everything we can to get them open as close to on time as possible. It should be open by the time this drops, almost certainly. We're also building dry slides there, and like I said, I'm kind of doing a lot of the slide work here in the U.S., so I'm excited to see those going as well. They're calling it Bird Venture. It's kind of like it's a bunch of slides. We call it a snake farm. It's like tube slides on the side of a hill that you can hike up to, go down these long slides, and it's catered to all ages. It's not just a playground for kids. Adults can go on this as well and experience it. And so we're doing a couple of cool things up at Anakista, and we're excited for that.
Very cool. Yeah, Anakista is beautiful. Yeah, I love the Chandala, as they call it, up there and down. The views you get. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, great. Well, thank you for sharing all about Wiegand, your employer. And I think it's awesome that you got your kind of your dream job there, and you're just getting started. And you got to be looking positively upon the future. So that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So we have a new question here, season 3. We call it the Dustin Leister question. It's named after a very tragic. One of our early fans of the channel, long before we were a podcast, so a YouTube channel. And he was on our podcast season 1, and he was not even 16 yet, and he tragically passed away last year. And so he was very close to David in California. I never got to meet him, unfortunately. But because of the impact his passing had on David, we added this new question to the interview slates. So that's the framing of this one. So how would you like your family, your friends, your colleagues, those that knew you, to remember you by?
Yeah, you sent this to me beforehand, of course, for listeners' context. And I had a chance to think about it a lot. And it's a really, really deep question to get into. And I actually lost my dad about 5 years ago to an accident, a very tragic accident. And one thing I saw from that was, when you die young, you end up having a lot of people at your funeral. It's unfortunate, but you also, for me, it was really cool to see just the number of people. There were probably over 2,000 people at my dad's funeral, just the number of people whose lives he touched and the people he had personal relationships with, right? And who really felt like that he had changed their life in some way. And that's kind of more of my life philosophy, more so than like, oh, I want to design the coolest roller coaster ever or do any of these cool projects. For me, valuing those relationships that I have in my life and staying close to the people that are close to me, the people that I love, the people that love me, I feel like that's the most important thing. And I want those people to remember me as a loving brother, as a loving friend, or as someone who positively impacted their life. And that's, I want to live my life in such a way that at my funeral, there will be a lot of people that will say, oh, he touched my life for the better. He set my life on a better course.
Love it. Love it. That's very poignant. And yeah, very well put. I can relate to that. You know, I love helping people. That's why I work in customer facing roles like sales. But even outside of my work, my personal life, I love helping people, whether it be at the parks. I love taking people to parks they've never been to and, showing them around and make sure they have a good time. I love just doing favors for people. One of my favorite things is to connect people, like friends looking for a job, and I know someone that they would be perfect for to work for, and just connecting them up. And these are things I don't have to do. I don't have to say anything at all, but I love helping people up and making people's lives better. And so that's how I want to be remembered by, which is very similar to what you shared there. That's great. Mm-hmm. I do have to ask, 2,000 people at your dad's funeral.
Yeah, that's an estimate shooting from the hip, but we held it at a church and we filled the entire pew and the entire overflow, basically. My dad was a very social person, but also in kind of one of those forward-facing positions. He did purchasing for his company, and a lot of like the business stuff. And he's very involved with the church that my family goes to, and very involved. I too am very involved with like my extended family beyond like just cousins, like second cousins, great aunts and great uncles. A lot of those people I know personally, and my dad was personally very close with those kinds of people as well.
Oh, that's great. Love it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Sounds like you lived a very noble life. And
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I lost someone very close to me last year. It was a former manager of mine, and to this day, still the best manager I've ever worked for. Just great. He was a great leader. He was a great nurturer. And the best managers they nurture their teams. Yeah. But just a wonderful friend too. And we remained friends long after we both left that company we were at. And he unfortunately, tragically passed away fairly young, in his 50s from ALS, and saw this decline. And he lived in California. And so I didn't get to, timing wise, didn't get to go to his memorial, but it was very much a life celebration, which I love those style of memorials. And I got to see it was video recorded and got to see it. It was several hours long, but I watched the whole thing. It was just very meaningful. And he touched so many people in such positive ways like he did with me. And it's, it's always great to celebrate people's lives.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, the last main question that we ask is, you've been through kind of the first half of the interview talking about, conquering fears on coasters and the positive impact that parks and coasters have on your life and so forth. And, we didn't necessarily get too much into this with you, which is fine. But, for a lot of people, theme park therapy is a very real thing. And going to the parks, riding coasters can help keep, depression at bay, anxiety, can help bipolar disorder, all, autism. It gets kind of normalized for a lot of people. I've seen that, with parks and so forth. So, and other things. But, with the mission in mind, and David talked about the mission before we started recording, do you have any advice that you'd like to share? Just any nugget of wisdom?
I think for me, from the perspective of working for Wiegand, is just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Like you said, IAPA is not really a job fair, but I knew I wanted to work in the industry, and I knew there would be a lot of industry people at IAPA. So I took the risk and printed out some resumes and flew out to Orlando and went to IAPA, and it turned out to be a very positive experience for me that kicked off my career and rekindled my interest in working in the amusement industry after 5 years of studying engineering. And do what makes you happy. I was struggling in school. Engineering school is difficult, as you're aware. And I'm I don't know if I could do this forever, but then I went out to IAPA and talked to all these companies, and I'm like, I could do this. I could work in the amusement industry, and I think I'd really enjoy myself working in engineering for a ride manufacturer or for some other company in the industry. So do what makes you happy. I'm not like a super ambitious person. especially after engineering school and knowing how difficult it can be to pull off some things in this world. But I ended up where I am now. I really enjoy my job, and I think I really am proud of the work that I'm doing. I'm excited for these products that I've designed to get built. Built a couple slides that are designed a couple slides that are going to get built later this year. And like I said, designed part of the Mammoth coaster, and I've written out countless proposals to other customers. And one of these days, I'm going to, be the ground up designer for one of these rides. And just do what makes you happy, I guess would be my advice.
That's awesome. That's great advice. And with regard to IAAPA, like I said, I've been going for the past several years now. I don't go there as a manufacturer. I don't go there to buy products. And because of that, I'm very respectful when I'm there, because I know that real business is happening. So I don't interrupt people, and I try to minimize the amount of time that I spend with the manufacturers. But what I do at IAAPA, and I enjoy it, of course. How can you not enjoy IAAPA, given what it is? But I'm mainly there, and the past couple of years, I'm mainly there to network for the podcast. And in fact, you and I are talking today because of me going to IAAPA this past year in 2022. Each year, I get to talk to different manufacturers, or reconnect, especially with ones, or say hi to ones. Like I said hi to Jake Helkup, at RNC, because we know each other now, and I interviewed him last year. But especially to score interviews and make connections. And I want to say her name is Jessica.
Yeah, Jessica. Yep.
Yeah. So she's the one I talked to. She gave me her card, and then she connected me with you. So, and we've already done another interview. I mentioned earlier the one with Mar that came from IAAPA last year, and there's going to be more on the way as well, it looks like. But so I can relate to going to IAAPA, like you said, kind of, being, not being shy. Just being like, hey, I'm going to go, being a go-getter, I guess is the way to put it. So I'm glad to see you're a go-getter, and that's how I am too, not getting a job per se, but, similarly trying to connect and get interviews. So, and it's really improved the variety of guests we've had on the show by doing that, because it's tough to connect with manufacturers otherwise. So, and I'm glad we got to connect and have this great conversation.
Yeah, so, I'm glad we got to connect as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, in conclusion, where can people find, whether it be yourself personally, if you'd like to share, or certainly Wiegand, website, social media, how can people kind of stay up on Wiegand and so forth?
For Wiegand, our website is probably going to be the most up to date in general. WiegandSportsUSA.com. That's the website for our US office. It's got contact information if you needed to reach out to us. We've got a YouTube channel, Wiegand Sports GmbH, Instagram at Wiegand Sports. Our office assistant, Victoria, updates that fairly regularly, and with pictures from rides that open, or just cool pictures customers send us of the rides that they're operating. We've got a Facebook page, Wiegand Sports USA. As for me personally, the one I'll plug on this podcast is my coaster Instagram, as I'm calling it. Inverted JW, my initials being JW at the end of that. You can follow that account. I post my coaster adventures on there when I get up to travel to parks or go to events with coaster clubs or those kinds of things. So you can find me there.
Great. I'll be sure to follow that one. Thank you for sharing. Well, Jacob, thanks again for taking the time here, and I'm recording on a Friday afternoon. So, of course you're in Mountain Time, so you're not, because it's about 7 p.m. where I'm recording here, but so you're just about hitting 5 p.m. there, but letting you go here for the end of the workday, so to speak. So thank you for joining and taking the time to speak with us. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Absolutely.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you want to see more of us, we upload every Friday. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. All at Coaster Challenge. Links are in the description below. Thanks for joining us here today.